We have a major David Savard trade update as Kent Hughes said that he is not necessarily shopping him, but without retaining any salary on Monahan, that definitely opens up a big possibility for David Savard or a bunch of other players on the Habs. This is a genius move, and there are a lot of huge implications for the Habs, and we're going to go through all of it on this episode of Habs Digest. But before we get into the video, guys, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. We're pumping out videos every day, and like today, sometimes twice a day if the news is big enough. And if you want to stay up to date on all things Habs, this is your spot. Hit that subscribe button. We got your back. Jesse, we got a big Savard trade update, and as a lot of you guys know, today the Montreal Canadiens made a huge trade, trading Sean Monahan to the Winnipeg Jets for a first and a third, and in the resulting press conference, Kent Hughes said a lot of things, and if you want to catch some of the things he said about the future of the team, how he feels the forwards will fill in, check out the video from earlier today where I went a little more in depth into that. But he also said that he's always open to anything, but he said, quote, "I can't tell you right now that we're looking to trade David Savard," and for a bit more context, the full quote is, "I haven't had a discussion with David yet, but my door is always open. Am I open to moving him? Well, I'm open to moving anyone on the team as long as it improves the team, but I can't say that we're actively looking to trade Savard." This is interesting, Jesse, and this is kind of what he said about Monahan as well when these rumors were out there, like Darren Dreger saying it's basically a certainty, Friedman saying the same thing. What do you think? Do you think Hughes is kind of like maybe playing it slow with Savard, or do you also think this is just him playing his cards close to his chest, trying to preserve as much trade value as he can for this player?
Absolutely. Looks like all options are on the table. Looks like everybody is fair game for the right price. For sure, Kent Hughes has his core, has his kind of those guys that he wants to keep, but you have to feel like maybe Savard is a little bit more on the fringes of that, right? But one of the big takeaways, again, from the trade today, a good return. We always feel like we would maybe want just a little bit more back just because we love Sean Monahan so much. But I mean, the first round pick that got us a first round pick and then another first round pick. I mean, you have to be so happy with that, right? But yeah, you have to feel like more moves are coming from the fact that we didn't hold on to any salary. He said, as the trade deadline is coming, whether it's to make a trade, whether it's to be a third team kind of as a broker, right? He wants to leave this flexibility, especially now that we have had that first round pick, because I mean, Kent Hughes has a history over the last two drafts, of using those first round picks to then, get Newhook, to get Kirby Dach to really wheel and deal. So he has some great ammunition now of not only that open roster slot, but then also that first round pick. So I'm wondering, does he try to package this to maybe even go for something even a little bit higher tier, dare I say, than even Kirby Dach or Alex Newhook? Is that really the next type of move that we're going for here?
I would fully believe it, and I think a David Savard trade would actually play a huge role in that because Hughes has been open about the fact that he's willing to move picks even this year, right? So, and Savard, I think he could get a very good return. As much as Kent Hughes wants to say, we're not actively shopping him, you got to think they're taking calls because he is a veteran defenseman, and he's been put in a bit of an unfortunate situation in Montreal where he's playing top pairing minutes. He's one of their best defensive defensemen, one of the league's leading shot blockers, so he's up against the other team's top lines all the time. And while he's not really a top pairing defenseman, so he's got some unfortunate advanced stats, but for a playoff run, you got to think teams are going to be calling for David Savard, just like they did for Ben Chiarot not that long ago. And remember what we got for him? First round pick. Am I saying that's what we'll get for Savard? Not necessarily. But at the same time, especially like you said, Jesse, we'll get into this a little bit more in the next segment of the video. But if you're able to retain something on Savard for these next two seasons, as he goes to a contender for maybe $1.7 million a year, you got to think that's going to be valuable. And the return Hughes gets back could be something big. And I think, yes, I think that he's kind of stockpiling his picks, stockpiling his assets to maybe make a big move. I feel like it's just part of a master plan, don't you? Like that kind of Godfather offer we've talked about. It feels like every day, every move is getting one step closer.
That's it. And that's why some fans are maybe a little bit surprised, like, oh, another kind of pick, even though it's a first round pick, like we're almost desensitized to at this point just because we have so many. But if you're wheeling dealing, if you're in Kent Hughes' world, there's no greater ammunition than the first round pick, right? Even if that is that late overall pick. So you have to feel like now is kind of the point where I really want to see him kind of packaging, not just that first round pick, but then a first round pick with something else to really get us that elite talent that I think, everybody knows that we need right now, right? So it's kind of that changing of the guard, like he said, right? Where it's like, now this is an opportunity where Sean Monahan, he's done such a tremendous service to his team. He's been able to just provide so much leadership, so much experience that he's imparted on this young core. And now, not only that, we're getting a first round pick for him again, but a chance for this younger team to really kind of take leadership, of that. And you have to feel like, are we going to bring somebody in that's going to really be part of that leadership, team kind of going forward, right? So it's kind of the gift that just keeps on giving from Sean Monahan.
That's the thing. And not every move needs to be some big blockbuster for a big return. I saw a lot of people saying, get some of Winnipeg's best prospects, like Rutger McGroarty. Don't think that was ever going to happen. But, you never know. With these little trades, as they add up and add up and add up, it could lead to something big. But it's not just that. Like we also said, I wanted to dive a little deeper into this, the whole salary retention part of this. And of course, they didn't retain any salary on Monahan, which makes sense. And I think that actually helped out a lot that Winnipeg didn't need that bit of retention to fit in Monahan's contract. And it was only $2 million, but there are some teams out there that don't have that space. Winnipeg had the space. They were able to fit him in. I believe New York would have had the space as well, but I digress. Let's take a little look at the Habs cap space situation. Feel free to pause here and have a look through. This is just the cap-friendly website for Montreal, and there's a lot of trade targets here, Jesse, and we've heard lots of rumors about Savard, who's $3.5 million this year and next. Of course, you could slap a 50% retain on that, retain $1.75 for each, make it a lot more affordable for a contender. Savard at under $2 million a year, I think that's a deal, but you also have forwards like Yoel Armia, who has garnered a bit of trade talk recently. Tanner Pearson, the 31-year-old unrestricted free agent after this season at $3.2 million, and even you have Jake Allen at $3.85 million. I think, arguably all four of those guys could be prime contenders for some salary retention, and I think, like we were talking about before the show, the fact that we managed to get a first for Monahan and a conditional third that's probably not going to convey without having to retain just opens up so many possibilities, because now I'm not even sure what move's going to come next, because I feel like there's 3, 4, 5 guys that Hughes can move on a dime with some retention, and I wouldn't even blink, and I think, yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
And it's all about those possibilities, because really what kind of handcuffed us from keeping Sean Monahan was two things. Was the first being the most important, the financial flexibility. He didn't really have that in the future without kind of, Sean's probably looking for that longer term type of deal while we're trying to clean up some deals that we kind of have right now. So I get, making sense to not really go there right now, but then also kind of following outside of the playoff picture again, kind of leading to the fact of the Sean Monahan trade there. But yeah, that's it. Just giving us that flexibility, right? I think is going to be so huge. That's why I wouldn't be surprised at all to see a David Savard type of trade, even though he is a right-handed defenseman, even though probably on a really contending team, a third pairing, very good right-hand defenseman. He's going to be so good in the playoffs, blocking shots and everything else like that. But once again, we're just giving those assets. We're kind of getting some things off the book a little bit to really allow Kent to have the space to really maneuver, because he's got great plans for this team. He knows exactly what he wants to do. He just really needs the space. He needs, just the financial flexibility to be able to make this happen, right? So I'm really looking forward to this day, because I really trust his vision once that's all clear.
Yeah, for sure. And there's little things too. Like when I was just looking through this cap-friendly page, I took a look at, what are the Habs currently paying in dead cap? Well, of course, we have Jeff Petrie at about $2.4 million for this year and next, thanks to that Detroit deal. We also had Joel Edmundson for this year, and also this is the last year of the Carl Alsner buyout. Anyway, but but this is it. So this year, 23-24, the Habs are paying about $5 million in dead cap, and that jumps down. It's cut in half next year to Petrie's just 2.4. So not only do we have that available spot to retain salary on whoever it may be, whether it's Savard or Allen, ultimately, even if you retain 50% on no matter any of those guys that we just mentioned, you're still going to be paying less in dead cap than you were this year. And no, it's not always good to be paying dead cap for a couple of years, but at the same time, especially if you can, that's another possibility, Jesse, even broker a deal with another team, something Hughes has not been afraid to do in the past. I just feel like, again, there could be, I think all 32 teams, well, I guess 31 other teams could be coming to Montreal to, whether it's to take one of their players, to have them broker a deal, or even just to chat with Kent Hughes. Like you said, this flexibility is almost unprecedented, not to mention the amount of picks he has to dangle as well.
It's so true. It's so true. And that's what we really need to kind of take us into that contention window, right? He really needs to take the time to really, engineer the team the way that he would have it fit. It's definitely a process, but we're getting there. And this move today is a big step in making that happen. Having those vets on our team, is so important. But now some of our young guys, Nick Suzuki, Caufield, they're starting to get a spot where they have a little bit more experience, where they can kind of start taking up a little bit more space, kind of learning to fly on their own and everything else. So, I mean, I'm really excited for this team. What a service Sean Monahan has really provided to us. Going to miss him so much, hurts a little bit less that he's with a Canadian team that's not the Toronto Maple Leafs, at least in another conference, and we don't have to face his winning ways too much, but yeah, definitely wishing him all the best for sure.
For sure. And if the speculation's true, like what Arp and Basu speculated, thinking Monahan might get a chance to play with Perfetti and Ehlers, that'd be a nice line. I know we all don't like Scheifele, but look, Jake Evans has moved past that hit. Maybe we should too. Really interesting team, the Winnipeg Jets, and wish Monahan all the best. Wish Savard all the best, because, I mean, he can't be easy being him right now, having his name being dangled left, right, and center for all these rumors. But hey, if he doesn't get moved, if he doesn't, we will try to be the first ones on it. So again, like we said, hit subscribe now if you want to stick up to date on all your Habs news. For now, that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like on the video as well. We'd really, really appreciate it. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.